Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thanks again for the invitation. So a couple of words and numbers from my side about the Czech fintech ecosystem. Yes, we can start directly with slide number 2, which is fintech in numbers. These numbers, just a disclaimer at the very beginning, these numbers were collected before the pandemic, which definitely has changed the landscape, but in general, it will give you a very broad idea of where the Czech Republic stands with fintechs. So before the pandemic hit, Czech Republic were second in the Central and Eastern European region in terms of investments into financial technology. And yesterday we had we got a very nice news that another fintech startup originating from the Czech Republic got investment in the amount of almost 90 million euro, which is I would say a huge success, but also a downside of the market here, which I will come back soon. I would say there are 4 main areas. In the fintech sector that are quite well developed and interesting. In the Czech Republic, and sorry, I just need to come back to the presentation. And when it comes to number of fintech companies, there are around 150 fintech companies. It of course depends. It really much depends on which definition and how we count a company as a financial technologies company. Then I will close up the presentation with 3+1 reasons for being interested in the fintech in the Czech Republic. Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Yes. So when it comes to the characters of fintech companies in the Czech Republic, they can be divided into 3 parts, just like in many other European markets. First of all, we have companies that try to be competitors to the incumbents, and they try to provide financial services on using purely technology, and provide services that are provided in a way better than the banks do right now. The second group are the so-called white-label companies, which are companies that do not have products they do not do products under their own name, but they provide various financial technology solutions to bigger companies like banks, e-commerce, etc. And then we have the third category, the smallest one on the Czech market, which are, I would call them innovators, which are companies that try to introduce new business models and new technologies. Next slide, please. So in the first category of those fintechs that try to be competitors to banks and other traditional institutions, these companies are active in 4 main areas. First of all, payment services, and the most renowned and successful are the so-called buy now, pay later companies, which is a different way of providing credit line to customers who either cannot afford a credit card or are, for example, young and prefer more modern solutions. The second area that is area of fintechs that are quite numerous here are those that provide alternative finances to corporate and retail customers. These are mainly online loans, P2P or peer-to-peer loans or invoices payments that are quite often combined with investment tools for those who are borrowing the cash flow. The third area are personal or corporate finance management applications. So these are mainly the apps that help consumers and companies manage their cash flow. And the fourth area are those white-label companies that provide infrastructure to banks, to e-commerce systems, or are trying to provide traditional companies with interesting data analysis. Besides, we have quite small but pretty active field of cryptocurrencies and crypto assets. And several fintechs that are trying to innovate the area of insurtech, for example. Next slide, please. In the area of the real innovators of the Czech financial sectors are, I would say, mainly those companies that provide crypto assets. These are various cryptocurrency exchanges, Bitcoin mats, hard and soft wallets, and some companies that are trying to come up with ideas how to use decentralized finance, especially in the area of providing better liquidity to companies. Today you will also have the chance to listen to colleagues who are, I would say, one of the best companies that we have on the market, which are using modern technologies such as AI to provide financial institutions with better cybersecurity, and I will leave it to them to tell you the details. And what is lacking on the Czech market is our solutions that are focused on robo-advisory, on digital onboarding, which is also connected to lack of proper regulations here. Next slide, please. So in general, if I were to summarize the Czech market with one sentence, is that there are few innovators. There are plenty of fintech companies that try to digitize traditional financial services, and in doing so, they are cooperating with banks. And unfortunately, I have to say, many of the fintechs here do not really have ambitions to go global, but these are not those who are present today. But the main objective is to cooperate with a bank and be bought by them. Next slide, please. Nonetheless, the fintech market here reflects the financial sector in general. So there is a huge potential of companies who would like to provide financial services here, because we have plenty of customers' assets sitting in bank accounts, and customers are not really interested in investments and multiplying their financial resources. So if companies would like to invest and be active in this area, I would see this as a huge potential on the market. There are several shortcomings of the fintech market. First is pretty tough regulation, which is nothing, of course, unusual in Europe. However, we are also encountering quite traditional supervisory authority, which is only recently being more open towards fintech, which we are grateful for. And to overcome this, together with the Ministry of Finance, we are trying to establish a financial innovation hub, which would help companies, both domestic and foreign, to be able and enter the Czech and European market. Next slide, please. So we have a regulator that is traditional, but being still more open. We have a society that is used to using electronic services. We have plenty of people who are, especially after COVID, who are used to and really switched to mobile phones. We have a huge number of payment cards and banks that were until recently not very innovative. So these are the three reasons why the fintech market here will definitely grow. Next slide, please. And the final reason why I would say the fintech market here will definitely grow is something that I have already mentioned. The customers have plenty of cash lying on their accounts, so they are waiting for innovative financial services which would help them multiply their money they have on the bank account. Next slide, please. And the next one, I will skip this one because this is something I have already mentioned. And something that I would like to close my presentation with is that Czech Republic is definitely an interesting business opportunity for companies from the outside. It is a fintech market that will definitely grow, but it is also important to remember that Czech Republic is part of the European ecosystem, which means that the regulation originates in Brussels, and for that reason, the Czech FinTech Association has established a European Digital Finance Association last year to help shape the regulation. Second important thing is that once a company from the outside enters European market and gets a license, they can operate on the entire EU market thanks to the instrument called passporting. And once you, for example, enter the Czech market, it's I would say to a great extent quite easy to expand to neighboring countries, especially in the region of Central European market. So this is it. This is a very short summary of the Czech fintech ecosystem. And I definitely, I know that you will have my presentation shared by the organizers, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yuki Kishi. Thank you very much for the introduction for today. I'm very honored to be here with us, with you guys, to present the current Japanese fintech market overview, trends, and some opportunities, especially for those watching abroad. Okay, let me quickly make it full screen for now. 1 second with me. Yep. So who I am, my name is Yuki. I'm currently working for a company called Plug and Play Japan, which what we do is we are trying to bridge the startups and the corporate, and in the world is fintech. I used to work for Deutsche Bank for many years, and then came to this company, and also since 2019, I am representing also Fintech Association of Japan. With the same mission, we are trying to embrace the Japanese fintech ecosystem. Just a bit of history about Fintech Association of Japan. We started in 2014 as a casual meetup, and we actually founded this association in 2015. And that's where in Japan, the word fintech had started to sweep in the Japanese market, Japanese media. And since then, we've been growing. This is the on one side we have startups. We have more than 150 fintech startups from various categories, and not only Japanese fintech, but also for those international startups, international fintech startups that are thinking the Japanese market or they already have presence in Japan market are with us. For example, on the bottom left, you have Revolut from UK. For example, Money Thor is from Singapore. So in case that if any Czech fintech startups like to come to the Japan market, we are more than happy to help as well. Not only fintech startups, but also we have many enterprises as listed here. More than 250 plus enterprises are with us in the ecosystem. So not only financial institutions, but we have people from telecoms, system integrators, and etc. So these companies are very much interested in seeking some sort of collaboration with the fintech startups, not only Japan, but also international startups as well. A bit of some of the statistics that I have. This is Japan market size. We are still the third largest, biggest economy in the world after US and China. But if you look at them from the city perspective, so have population, GDPs, as well as number of Fortune 500 companies by the city, Tokyo are ranked. It's basically ranked as number 1 or either number 2 in this league table. So which means that the market is huge when it comes to the city perspective. And in terms of the total fundraised, this is not only fintech, but in general, the startup ecosystem, it has been growing since 2011. Even the number of companies, as well as the number of the amount of fundraised, has been growing since 2011. Of course, due to COVID-19, 2020 has been has been hit negatively in terms of both the number of startups as well as number of fundraised, but the general trend has been growing for the past 10 years. And if we took out the only fintech statistics, same as the previous presenter, this actual statistics was taken a little outdated before COVID-19. However, we kind of believe that the fintech market is expected to grow for the coming years as well. In Japan, the word fintech had started to appear in the media since 2015. That's the time that we kind of started the Fintech Association of Japan as well. And in terms of a growth rate, Japan fintech ecosystem will surpass the rate of APAC, US, and EU, according to the EY research. So that's something that we are expecting to see for coming years as well. And if I sort of break it down in some sort of categories, 2019, 2020, this is the amount of investment in by the volumes. And if you look at it, as mentioned, the overall investment size has decreased due to COVID-19. However, if I only take out the fintech part, the 2019 statistics says $511 million US, but for 2020 it has actually increased to $126 million US. So I think that shows that the momentum, as seen previously, that the fintech ecosystem, the fintech market is still on a growth trend from my perspective. Having said that, if I take out the actual investment size compared to other countries, the Japan market, we believe that there's still big opportunity for growth. For example, on your left-hand side, that shows the amount of investment by volume against the GDP. Compared with, let's say, US or Canada, UK, Japan is still one of the lowest out of G7 countries. And if you look at the number of venture deals, which is on the right-hand side, this graph has been taken from Wall Street Journal, and it shows the amount of investment. This is more in terms of absolute number of investment size since 2015 to 2020. It's very obvious that in terms of absolute number of investment going into the startup ecosystem is still very, very low compared to the market. Having said that, there has been interesting increase of non-Japanese venture capital in 2020. So this is once again comparison between 2019 statistics as well as 2020. Generally, the amount of investment that went into the startup ecosystem has been declining. But if you look at the VC of non-Japanese VCs, the actual investment size has increased. Why is that? Some of the big players like Sequoia Capital is now thinking to come to Japanese market, or they have already came to Japanese market, as well as some other players are now coming to Japan market as well. And of course, a plug and play itself, our headquarters is in Silicon Valley, but we do have presence in Japan since 2018. So there has been many eyes from venture capital from a non-Japanese venture capital perspective. And this is some of the notable investments by international VCs or organizations. The one on the top, the startup called Hey, that's fintech startups invested by Goldman Sachs, PayPal, Bain Capital. Cash, which is also another fintech platform, is once again, if you look at the number list of investors, that's all coming from non-Japanese VCs. And some other like 500 startups, which is once again well-known top-tier VC in the States. They invested some of the insurtech companies as listed here. And also in Japan, there's been many fundraising as well as IPOs. Some notable IPOs and fundraised activities for fintech perspective is that Free, from left-hand side, Free, which is the online accounting software, IPO in 2019 December. Wealth Navi, which is the wealth management, a robo-advisory platform, that also went public in December 2020. This was the first wealth management platform to go into the public. So that was one of the biggest news for the fintech IPOs last year. And also Paydi, this is more an enabler for the EC platform, is once again, they raised a Series C round from PayPal Ventures, Visa, Goldman Sachs, once again showing that the non-Japanese VCs or corporate venture fund is now coming into this Japanese fintech ecosystem. And I've been talking about on the fintech players, but at the same time, what's very important is on the other side of on the platform, which is incumbents. For example, these are two examples listed here. MUFG and SMBC, which is both of them are one of the mega banks in Japan market. They are very keen to work with the fintech players for pretty some time, since 2015 for MUFG as well as SMFG. They recently opened this collaboration office in 2017, and both with the purpose to support startups and seek new business opportunities through open innovations. And of course, these two players, not only them, but also in general, they are looking not only Japanese startups, but also international startups. And once again, similar comments that, of course, when people think about fintechs, even the fintech players, they are thinking to collaborate with the financial institutions. But in Japan, financial institutions are not the only players that are thinking to work with the fintech players. For example, telecoms, they also have a strong financial service department within the company. And also in Japan, players like system integrators, like listed here, Hitachi, NEC, Toshiba, NTT Data, NRI. These are the very important players when it comes down to like fintech collaborations, because they are the one who will be implementing your services into their financial institutions, technology, in your infrastructure. This is some of the statistics that my company, Plug and Play Japan, has taken. So what Plug and Play does in a nutshell is that we try to bridge the communication between the fintech players and the corporates. And how we do it is we do it through accelerator programs. And in the past, since 2018, for the past 3 years, we've been doing supporting many startups. Out of 89 startups, 60% are international, 40% are Japanese. So which show that there has been very strong demand or appetite from international startups to come to Japanese market, and that's why we step in to help them. By countries, the US has been #1 because our foundings are from the States, so we have more networks in the States. But having said that, we do have many European startups like UK, France, and also in the past we supported like a German startups, Solaris Bank, which is one of the unicorn companies in Germany, and yeah, some other Dutch, the Netherlands companies as well. So that in case that if any Czech companies wants to come to the Japanese market, always I'm happy to speak to as well. And on the right hand side, this is by category, like what kind of solutions, what kind of technology were used. For the past, let's say like 2 years ago, or up until last year, some of the trends are like blockchain, RegTech were there. Since last year, there has been growing number of cybersecurity demands due to the COVID-19 situation. And of course, capital markets, any technologies that solutions can be used at the capital markets is also, we're getting more traction. So some positive perspective. So 3 points. The #1 is government is really pushing to embrace a better startup ecosystem. This is one of the key agenda for the government, Japanese government, to promote and foster more startup ecosystem in Japan. And second is the regulator is promoting more international fintech players to enter Japanese market. I believe that Matsudawa-san from FSA will be speaking more on this later in the session. That even regulators now really thinking about how they can promote or foster this ecosystem. And also, as seen in the previous slides, that the more private sector players, not only financial institutions, but non-FIs, are now coming into this ecosystem. So from a fintech startup perspective, there will be more opportunities, more collaboration partners that you can work with. And I believe, so this is the last slide that I have, because today's audience is mainly from the Czech Republic. So a few tips when it comes down to coming to Japan market. Of course, this applies to other markets as well, but some of the highlights, you have to find the right partners in Japan. As mentioned, financial institutions one there, but also system integrator like Hitachi, Toshiba, NECs. Getting their networks is also very important. And second, you have to find a local talent. And third, you have to build a relationship with the regulators, which is very important especially if your solution is in a regulated environment. And fourth, you have to understand the business culture. Of course, every country has slightly different business culture, and Japan is also one of the very different culture that we have in compared to other countries. And people say that the decision-making process tends to be very slow compared to other Western countries, which is true. So you have to know that you have to have the right expectation when it comes down to working with the Japanese companies. Yes, so that's it. That's the end of my presentation. So if in case you have any questions about the Japanese ecosystem, and also if you are thinking to come to Japan market, always try to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to get you connected with the right players in the ecosystem. Thank you very much. And yes, that's about it from my side.
So good morning and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Ivan Cho and I work for the Ministry of Finance. My goal is to introduce you maybe to our point of view as a state, how we try to promote our innovative companies and also how we see future in the digital finance sphere. Most of all, I would like to stress my thanks to our companies that are participating in the seminar. Maybe what Mr. Kishi was mentioning, there is one side, which is FinTech, the other might be AI. So I would like to stress that two of the companies that will be presented today, Restraint AI and Trustmark, they are also dealing with AI solutions. So we try to really focus on what's important. And maybe I will go now back to my presentation. The idea is that Czech Republic already have some very good export articles. You might have heard about Pilsner beer, but maybe you also use some of the cybersecurity products such as Avast antivirus. So our goal is to promote also Czech fintech companies to be as successful as other products of the Czech Republic. Financial sector is financial services is quite a sector which is, let's say, regulated in a way that might seem to be prohibitive for many that are entering the market. So from this perspective, regulatory framework is something that defines the entry and also the possible success and development of the solutions. Of course, this can vary in different jurisdictions, but what is still the same is that every country is now focusing on digital economy. So combining these two factors, let's have a look on what's happening in this field. We try to promote innovation, but also we look on how current regulation is, let's say, supportive or prohibitive for this new technology, but we also try to look on the way how consumer protection is still assured when the new technology comes, and we try to keep our regulatory framework up to date to these new challenges. As it was already mentioned, within the European Union, many of the regulatory aspects are done in a way that is shared and binding in Europe as a whole. So what we can say is that we would like to promote Czech Republic as a point of entry for foreign companies into the European Union. We share the same legislation, and if you get a license in Czech Republic, it's valid within European Union. So that's one of the aspects. And the second, let's say, you probably have heard about GDPR. And with this, I would like to show how European Union is in some ways leading the way, how new technology should be defined within the legal framework. So I saw that maybe for the purpose of this presentation, it might be interesting to Japanese companies to get a short and quick look into what's happening in this field. So I prepared, and with my colleagues, some of the information that relies to new draft regulation that concerns AI. That's a horizontal regulation. It's not focused on financial services, but creditworthiness is one of the usage of AI that was deemed to be high risk in the proposal. And then I will briefly comment on some of the proposed regulation relating to the data. So, just to begin with, European Commission and European Union was already focusing on innovation, let's say, from the beginning. So when the first regulatory approaches were adopted, it was clear that there is still a space for improvement. So there are many steps that were adopted to improve the situation in the financial sector. I will not go into the details, but there is some innovation in this, which was, let's say, defined in the strategy, or let's say, communication of European Commission that was shared in September of last year. What's interesting for you, it might be that it's not only about regulation, it's also about digital single market, and it's about data space that will be defining all of the new solutions that will be presented in the market or present in the market in the future. So let's say the view is holistic in a way, but let's see what this will mean in reality. Some of the draft regulations have been already introduced. The others are still in making. Sorry. So as already mentioned, that artificial intelligence is something of a buzzword for the moment. So the first steps were more of non-binding instruments. There have been a lot of ethical work, a lot of guidelines, and this rests still an preferable approach for many companies. On the other hand, it's important to see what the society or what the governments would like to see them to do with AI solutions. So there are many papers that deal with how this should be done, not only in EU, but also in the OECD. So I guess you might be aware of some of them. I will not go into detail. If you are interested, there are many of them. What happened right now is the draft regulation that was issued last month. So maybe I will go to this. The approach is very specific. It deems some of the AI usage as too dangerous to be allowed to be used. The others might be of high risk, and the others would demand only a very specific guidelines to be used by the companies. So it's good to see this as a way Commission sees the future, but of course member states will now comment on the draft and say their share. And at the end, of course, it will be also European Parliament and the market that will have say in the adoption and drafting of the new regulation. The approach that was chosen, the first definition into annex in a way, so it's tries to be flexible. So some of the definitions and prohibited systems might still be redefined or add to or change in a way. So just the idea was to focus on those that are already deemed to be dangerous, but we can speculate on what will be the end. What is interesting for financial sector is that some of the solutions are deemed to be high risk, which would mean that any startup, any innovative company that will wish to introduce their product into the market will need a certificate which would actually guarantee the functioning of the system. This might be something, let's say, prohibitive to smaller companies. It might be also difficult to obtain if you don't have a big data set that you can use and where you can show that your solution is safe. What might mitigate this problem is a way how to help to go through this regulatory, let's say, obstacles, if I would say so. It might be a sandbox that would be run either by EU or by the member states, where you would be able to test your solution, and also you might be able to get some help to go through this. In this slide, you can see some of the, let's say, more specific regulatory obstacles, I would say so. It's quite prohibitive if you would face a fine of 30 million euros. So this is something that might definitely disencourage some smaller companies to enter the market. I already mentioned the sandboxing. I already mentioned the help that it's planned for the small companies. But just to finish with this topic, Czech Republic is planning to be somehow helpful in this field. We are quite strong in AI, and we would like to also provide a solid background for our companies in financial solutions, financial services. As I promised, some more of the regulation. I'm sorry to talk about regulation, but let's say this is our job. And also we are here to help our companies to go through this. So I just try to, again, quickly go through it. The idea is to have a common digital economy and digital place in Europe. This may include some acts or regulation that is targeted to the companies that are that are being distributors of the data or acting in the data sphere, or these regulations are addressed to the government that holds some data. So the aim is to use all the data as much as possible for all the companies in the market. So if you wish, you can go through different specific regulatory acts. The important thing is that you would really need to think about all of this before you would be going into the market that you don't know. So I already mentioned the Czech approach. We were one of the first countries to approve a national strategy on AI. This was done already in 2019. We try to support as much as we can the development of the AI solution within the Czech Republic. There are many projects, and I guess also our embassy would be introducing more of them later on this year. So please, if you are interested more into AI, you will have other opportunities to get to know Czech solutions or companies. This was already shown by Maria, but let me go again through some of the Czech companies. The field is very diverse. Maybe as Mr. Soejima was quoting Karel Čapek, let me say that his brother Josef Čapek was famous for his paintings and stories. One of them dealt with dog and cat that were cooking together. So in a way, FinTech is a very broad field where you can find many solutions. So I hope that there is always a Czech solution for every problem. So this would be one of my final messages. And with this, let's sum up. We are here to help you to enter Czech market. We are also here to help Czech companies to enter foreign markets. We have a specific email that you can see on this slide, innovation.Ministry of Finance Czech Republic.cz. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. I will be happy to help you to understand the regulation, and hopefully with this you can enter also other European markets. Thank you very much. I hope I was in time or gained some time, and I will now give back floor to you, Mr. Sobora. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen for the moment. Okay, hi, hello everyone. I'm Shota Matsuzawa from the FinTech and Innovation Office, JFSA. And thanks to the Embassy of the Czech Republic, we are pleased to join this kind of event to explain our initiatives. First, I would like to talk about our International Financial Center initiatives. And second, let me quickly touch the regulatory landscape in Japan. And lastly, I will talk about our FinTech support desk and the FinTech POC hub. First, let me talk about the background of this initiative, the International Financial Center initiative. Japan as a country, we are proud of our political stability, good public security, and a favorable living environment such as the food and nature and the reasonable living cost. Also, Japan has a sizable domestic economy, which the Kishi-san mentioned before, and the household assets are 18 trillion US dollars. But we clearly understand that Japan is not good enough to attract the foreign talents to come here all the way from their home country. So Japanese government evaluate ourselves how to make our country a better place for the foreign talents. And we hope initiative taken by Japanese government can encourage the people to come to Japan. Major initiatives are providing the convenience and the accessibility through the regulatory measures and the tax system enhancement and the livelihood support by the collaborating with other ministries. Our goal is that Japan aims to be an international financial center that attracts the talents and corporates and the funds from other countries. I'd say our first priority is talent. Our population has been shrinking, and it is getting harder and harder to find the native talents here. As Hong Kong and Singapore made a great success to grow by welcoming the foreign talents, for us, it is time to open our gate widely to be another international financial center in Asia. We don't need to replace Hong Kong or Singapore, but can find our own way to be an international financial center with our resources, which I mentioned before. Again, we would like to make Japan an attractive place for foreign professionals to live and do business, in addition to a tourism destination. On this page, in October last year, Prime Minister Suga clearly mentioned, we will welcome the finance professionals from the overseas as we strive to be a financial center in Asia and the world. To this end, we will immediately review the relevant aspects of our tax system, provide broader administrative services in English, and relax the requirements for residential status. We understand that people think government is too slow, plus sometimes our plans are made but they're never implemented. But this case, all the initiatives I will explain have been approved by the Cabinet Office already. The good news is after we announced this policy package in December last year, that we started receiving the many inquiries about our initiatives. And the first one of the initiative, actually the support, the fintech company also can get the benefit is the English support for the overseas financial service provider. Previously, regulatory compliance cost was high in Japan due to the requirement to file the application and legislation in Japanese. And also financial institutions must discuss with the different contact points in JFSA and the local finance bureaus. And it may take you a while, plus several visits to bureau office. For those who don't know much about the regulatory landscape in Japan, let me explain the local finance bureaus. In Japan, we have 10 local finance bureaus under Ministry of Finance. They handle the matters related to JFSA and the Ministry of Finance in each regional area. In general, you must communicate well with the local finance bureau when you apply for the license or make a legislation. But after getting license or after legislation, you will be supervised by JFSA. This is rough explanation, and it depends on which license you are talking about. And as our solution, Financial Market Entry Office was established by JFSA and the local finance bureau in January this year. This office provides the one-stop English services for the pre-application consultation and the registration procedures and the supervision. The office started with 10 English-speaking specialists to handle these matters. Also, financial administrative services in English through the AI-powered translation technology started from the last month, and it can accelerate our transition quickly. This page is about the supporting network. Even though foreign talents think Japan is attractive to live, there are many hurdles to overcome during the company setup and the relocation. That is why JFSA is setting up the network of local support. But unfortunately, this support network is currently only for the foreign asset management companies, but we would like to expand our scope to fintech in the near future. Let me dig in that detail a bit. As a company setup support, we will help your first the company setup in Japan, and 2 acquisition of the residential status, and 3 obtaining the license and or the legislation by connecting you with the lawyers and the accountants. And as the livelihood support, we will introduce real estate agents and medical institutions and the school to you. And the next part is I would like to talk a little bit about our regulations here in Japan. So this is a list of the major financial regulations in Japan. And the crypto assets exchange and the fund transfer and the issuance of the prepaid payment instruction are frequently asked by fintech companies, especially from the overseas. And from here, let me cover the fintech support desk. So in December 2015, JFSA established the fintech support desk, a single point of contact for the consultation for fintech. We try prompt completion of the consultations within 5 business days on average, such as clarification of legal interpretations for the ensuring compliance with existing laws and the regulations of the provision of guidance on individual cases. From fintech companies' standpoint, it is extremely difficult to find the right team to be approached in JFSA. So fintech support desk helps to reach out the right team in charge on behalf of the fintech companies. Since its establishment, the fintech support desk has received over 1,000 inquiries. You can find on the left-hand side the high-level breakdown of all inquiries. The most common type of the consultation is about the business setup. And the right-hand side, you can find a breakdown of the consultations completed. And about 40% of those who consulted us were not the regulatory compliance matters. Next page, about the POC hub. So JFSA opened the FinTech POC hub with the aim of eliminating the hesitation and the worries of the fintech companies and financial institutions when they intend to conduct the innovative POC. For each experiment, a team in charge is established in JFSA and offers support in collaboration with the related ministry and agencies as necessary. So that the relevant fintech companies or the financial institutions can conduct the POC to achieve the innovation. Excuse me. Support is offered over a certain period of time and during and after the experiment while giving the advice continuously. So we have done 5 POCs in the past, and currently there are 3 ongoing projects in our hand. Lastly, this is the contact information of each desk. If there are any fintech companies who would like to communicate with the JFSA, I suggest you to first contact the fintech support desk, which I manage. And thank you for your time today, and hope to see more of the Czech fintech companies come to Japan in the future. Yep. So this is the end of the presentation.